Lalo Alvarez on YouTube. I need a layman's explanation of what a grant is. What is the equivalent on the homebrew side? Great question. If you watch any of my brew days, you are going to hear me make a fairly corny joke of talking about my man Ulysses. And so on my brew house, I have the hot liquor tank on the bottom, mash tun on top. Down over to the side is the grant, and then there's a pump attached to the grant that goes down, up, and then back up to my mash tun, so I can vol off, recirculate. And in my brewery, it's he's named Ulysses S. Grant. I'm sure that it is. I'm sure there's no other brewery. I'm sure there's no other brewer that's done that before. That's made that joke or labeled their grant that way. Probably in the same way that no one has ever hung a picture of Christopher Walken on the walk-in cooler in the kitchen either. So I'm a trailblazer. I'm a trailblazer. So yeah, the grant is it's this intermediate vessel that in this case holds wort. The reason that grant is in place is, remember, my mash tun has a false bottom, so like a screen, and then there's space below it, and then there's the grain above it, right? And when I am verloffing or recirculating to create a grain-free wort, or when I am lautering, running that wort from the mash tun to the kettle, it flows through this grant. Reason being is, if I don't have a grant, if I don't have a vessel between the mash tun and my pump, there remains the possibility that if my pump was just running directly to the bottom of my mash tun, if I ran that pump too fast, I could take my grain bed and compress it, and I would lose the ability to flow both wort and sparge water through uniformly through the entire cylinder of that mash. And that's really what I want to be doing, because I want to be extracting as much flavor and color and sugar out of that as I can. As kind of a safeguard from running that pump too hard and compressing that grain bed, I then run wort off the bottom of the mash tun into the grant, and then I pump off the grant. If I run the grant dry, I haven't put any additional pressure on the grain bed, right? It'll just choke my pump. So that's really the idea. It's kind of a safeguard of over circulating or creating too much pressure suction on the bottom of your mash and then collapsing that mash bed. And then what you're going to see is if and believe me, I've done it plenty of times. If you collapse that grain bed, rather than it being straight across, sometimes you'll see like the leaning tower type grain bed, where you'll have a cylinder, and it should be nice and beautiful like this, but then it'll be like leaned, and you'll see like it'll cut off the wall, and you can see that your sparge water is actually just running down the top and down the side, and you're not rinsing all the grain over on this side. It's just running down. Sometimes it'll cone up in the middle, and so like the grain's real tall at the top. It's like a stack in there, and then it goes down on the sides. Again, that means that you're running your sparge water down along the outsides of it, and not universally, but all the way through the grain bed instead. That's what that grant is helping to deal with. You don't see that. I don't believe you see that on the homebrew side, in part because the volumes are different, and you can't, and it's probably more difficult to blast that real hard. Like when I was recircing off of, like out of a kettle, not a kettle, but a cooler, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I could run it too hard or something, but it's probably a little bit of a difference in scale. Yeah, Hugh Grant was an option, WD. I don't know if I don't know if I'm threatened by like Hugh Grant's just kind of like, I don't know, just his 90s like soft, nice guy, undeniable allure. I mean, is that what I'm resisting there? It's a real possibility, you know. I mean, also, I was gonna say Hugh Jackman, but then I'm forgetting. I'm not riffing off Hugh. I'm riffing off of Grant. I mean, there's also Amy Grant for any of those like 80s, early 90s, like Christian rock people out there. I mean, there's a lot of options, but we went presidential. Okay. We went top shelf. We went presidential. September and June says, I call my mill Adam. He crushes it. Love you, September. And it only works intermittently. and there's the dum dum.